This is Nidhi Jain, and a warm welcome to all of you on this FirstCry Intelli event. We are a couple of minutes late in starting already because I had a small episode of anxiety just before we started. So the team and I had set up and done our mock demo session and everything. But unfortunately, as things would be, we weren't able to connect. So although me and the team were ready for the past 15 minutes, the camera kept denying us permission to enter and go on live, and because of that, we were all a little panicked. So first of all, I'd like to apologize for being a couple of minutes late. But yes, here we are, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time out to come for this event. I want to thank FirstCry Intelli for giving me the opportunity to be on this platform. I'm going to start again by introducing myself. My name is Nidhi Jain, and I'm a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist. I work at Prafulta Center for Psychological Wellness, which is a mental health clinic at Andheri East in Mumbai. So over the years, I have been working in the area of community mental health, wherein I work in the sector of preventive mental health care. I conduct a number of mental health awareness workshops with parents, children, various age groups, so as to bring about an awareness of mental health and to also make mental health care accessible to the population at large. Today, it's echoing, sorry. Today we are going to be primarily talking about anxiety and the lack of socialization in children that is caused due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdown it has imposed. But before we go ahead, what we need to address is the question about what is anxiety actually. Now, anxiety is a very basic human emotion. It's something I just experienced a couple of minutes back. It is a feeling of worry, it is a feeling of unease, it is a feeling of discomfort, it's the feeling of dread that one experiences before an anticipated event. Like we say in Hindi, it is that feeling of chinta. And it's like I said, it's a very normal human emotion. Almost all of us experience anxiety at some point of time in our life. And in fact, anxiety is an evolutionary response. So, the basic emotion of anxiety is something that we have experienced right through evolution, and it has served a very vital role in the whole process. Because if you go to see in the past, when we were cavemen or when we did not have access to a lot many resources, it was this anxiety or worry that enabled us to protect ourselves from any danger, from animals, from any unforeseen circumstances. And this is what I mean when I say that anxiety is an evolutionary response. So that means that a certain amount of anxiety is very, very necessary, because it not only protects us from any unforeseen or foreseen danger, but it also enables us to put in our best. It also acts as a motivator. It also enables us to put in that extra effort, right? So in that sense, anxiety in a certain amount to a certain degree is extremely, extremely useful and beneficial, because it not only safeguards us, but it also enables us and motivates us to put in our best. However, in an excessive amount, or when the severity of the anxiety increases, or when the duration of the anxiety increases, if I feel that I am anxious to a great extent, if I feel that I am anxious for a very prolonged period of time, that is when it becomes an issue, and that is when it becomes a cause for concern, right? Now, like we've already established at the beginning of the session, almost all of us, adults and children alike, experience anxiety at some point of time. But when the quantity and quality of this anxiety becomes severe or becomes excessive, that is when it becomes a problem. So this is addressing the question about what is anxiety. Now, is anxiety similar in adult and children? So the answer to that question is not necessarily. In children, the anxiety might manifest itself in a lot many more different ways. And that is why, as parents, as primary caregivers, we need to be very vigilant as to these signs in our children. So now we'd like to move ahead. Now I'd like to move ahead to what are the manifestations of anxiety in children. How does anxiety show up in children? What does anxiety look like in children? So broadly speaking, to make it simple for our audience to understand, I'm going to talk about two manifestations of anxiety or two categories of manifestations. I'm going to talk about physical manifestations, somatic manifestations or manifestations in the body. And I'm going to talk about psychological manifestations or behavioral manifestations in the children, right? Now, children unfortunately lack the resources to articulate their thoughts and feelings, right? So a child might be feeling anxious, might be feeling worried, might be feeling stressed, but it's not always very easy for the child to come and tell you that, hey mom, hey dad, this is what I'm feeling. So the children unfortunately do not have the cognitive resources, the linguistic resources to talk about what they are feeling. And hence, as parents, we need to be in tune with these manifestations. Now, coming to the physical manifestations or the somatic manifestations or the manifestations in the body or the bodily symptoms that you will see that could indicate that your child is suffering from anxiety. These manifestations could be in the form of headaches. The child might complain of excessive headaches. He might have other complaints like feeling nauseous, feeling queasy in the stomach. He might be feeling tired. His legs might start to ache. He might complain of having difficulty in eating. There might be a loss of appetite. So parents, as I'm talking about these symptoms, you could run a mental checklist. Are any of your children exhibiting these symptoms? We spoke about headaches. We spoke about nausea and stomach related issues. We spoke about overall tiredness. We spoke about leg ache or any other ache in any part of the body. We also spoke about difficulty in eating. The child might be eating a lot of food, more than they would normally consume, or they might have a reduced intake or a reduced appetite and a loss of interest in eating. Another bodily symptom could be sleep. The child might find it extremely difficult to fall asleep, or they might find it extremely difficult to wake up. They are sleeping for longer periods of time, or they're sleeping for lesser periods of time. So in some way, their circadian rhythm is influenced. The child might get up with nightmares. There might be episodes of bedwetting. And these parents are all a deviation from their normal. That is, this is a child who has not been having symptoms like this in the past, but suddenly, because of the anxiety, all these bodily symptoms or all these physical symptoms have started to come up. In addition, there might also be psychological symptoms or behavioral symptoms. Now, when we talk about psychological symptoms or behavioral symptoms, we're talking about things like being irritated. We're talking about things like being aggressive, being agitated. Suddenly, the child might have a spurt in tantrums, might have meltdowns, might have crying spells, might have spells of screaming, shouting, throwing things. And these are all not behaviors that the child has previously engaged in. So these are, to a certain extent, unexplained. We do not know why the child is suddenly behaving in this aggressive fashion, right? There might also be a loss of interest in activities that the child normally found pleasurable, normally found exciting, normally found engaging. The child might suddenly have a loss of interest in all those activities and might not want to engage in it. So these would be some of the behavioral symptoms, some of the psychological symptoms which are a deviation from the normal behavior of the child. So as parents, we need to be attentive to these symptoms and see and understand why the child is behaving in this particular fashion, right? Uh, which now brings us to the current pandemic, the COVID-19 and the lockdown that it has imposed. These are very, very trying times for us, for all of us. We're almost in about 3.5 to 4 months of lockdown. And this has affected us as a race. All humans across the world have been affected by it. As adults, we are better equipped cognitively, socially, physically, psychologically to handle a stress like that. Children, unfortunately, do not have the resources, and whether we acknowledge it or not, the stress of COVID-19 and the lockdown has had an impact on the children in more ways than we can possibly imagine. Which then brings us to the next point. What can we do as parents? What can we do as caregivers to attend to the children in such a sensitive phase, to be caring and nurturing towards the children in such a sensitive time of their life? So the first point that I would like to make here is that we need to help the children to manage their anxieties. We cannot eliminate the anxiety. So that's the first thing we need to understand as caregivers. We cannot do away with the anxiety. We cannot simply make it vanish. That's not possible as much as we'd want it. So what we can do is to help the children manage their anxiety, to deal with the anxiety, to control and to channelize their anxiety. And how do we go about that? The first step would be to not belittle the anxiety, to acknowledge and to accept that yes, the anxiety does exist, and how do we deal with it? So we need to be loving and caring towards our children. We need to establish a structured routine with them. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this point, because children at the end of the day thrive in structure. So it's very important to have a routine in place for them. We need to have more or less fixed structure to the day. What time do the children get up in the morning? What time do they have their breakfast? What is their study time? Most schools have started online education. So what is the time that they are studying? What are the times that they are having their meals? What is their entertainment time? What are they doing to relax? What are they doing to connect with their peers? So maintaining a more or less fixed structure to the day goes a long way in helping the children, because then subconsciously they know what is expected of them. They know that they are expected to get up. They know that they are expected to finish their morning rituals of getting their breakfast, bathing. They know that this is the time that work or school or studying is expected of them. They know that this is playtime for them. And that kind of structure to the day, that kind of routine to the day enables them to feel more in control. And automatically, but obviously, when you're more in control, then you're going to feel less anxious. When you know what is coming next, when you know what to expect next, you're not going to feel so anxious and worried. So parents, I know it's lockdown, and I know that we have, as caregivers, as adults, we have more than our plates full. Most of us are working from home. Most of us also have responsibilities in the house. But it's very important for the child that we establish a certain routine, a certain structure, and stick to it as far as possible. It's also very important that we, in this structure and in this routine, that we schedule enough time for relaxation and play. See, children are ultimately have a lot of energy in them. And this sudden period of lockdown where they're not allowed to go out, where they're not allowed to interact with their peers, where they're not allowed to go down and play, where they're not allowed to go to school, has taken a tremendous toll on our children. So it's very important in this structure and routine to slate out some time that is relaxing for the child, that is entertaining for the child, that is something that the child looks forward to. Now, as parents, the concern that we feel, and almost all of us feel this, is the screen time, the amount of time that the child spends in front of the screen. Um, Now, what I tell parents and what I tell all the people I interact is we cannot penalize the child because suddenly the only medium of communicating with the outside world is through the screen. So the child is spending 5 hours, 6 hours studying in front of the screen. If there are younger children, they're spending a couple of hours, being on in online education. All their assignments are happening online. Um, and so as parents we feel, oh my god, the child is getting too much screen time. So parents, there is no reason to worry. There is absolutely no conclusive evidence to show that screen time is bad for children. We cannot help but agree to the fact that the only window that the children have to the world is through the screen. So do not deny them that. Make separate hours scheduled for academic screen time and entertainment screen time, non-academic screen time, so the child knows that this is the screen time I'm getting to study, this is the screen time I'm getting for entertainment, and this is the screen time I'm getting to connect with my peers or family or any other members. So it's important to demarcate these screen times so it's clear in the children's head, and we as parents do not feel overwhelmed that the child is getting excessive screen time. It's also important to incorporate some physical exercise in the day. At the end of the day, there's a lot of toxin buildup in children, right? And they have a lot of physical energy. And when this is not channelized properly, there are going to be outbursts, there are going to be crying spells, there are going to be tantrums because the child doesn't know what to do with all that physical pent up energy. So it's very necessary to schedule some amount of physical activity in the day. In most places, the lockdown is lifting. So if it's possible for the child to go down and cycle or go down for a run, go down and play for a little while. And even if that's not possible, at home, the child could be engaging in hula hoops, could be engaging in skipping or running around the house if that permits, could be tossing around a ball a little bit if that permits. So any kind of physical activity that helps the child to deal with all the pent up energy and the excessive anxiety and worry that he or she is experiencing. Which brings me to the next point, and very important point. It is very necessary for us to spend quality time with our children, as difficult as it may be, given the demands that we have on our time and attention currently. But schedule some time in the day where you can attend to the children doing activities that they like. Work with your children, see what makes them happy. It could be cooking, it could be painting, it could be dancing, it could be gardening, it could be reading a book, coloring. Any activity one-on-one with your child that makes him or her happy, please find the time to do that with your children and see how immediately and drastically the anxiety levels are going to drop. Which brings me now to the next part of my presentation, which has got to do with the lack of socialization that the pandemic and the lockdown has caused for all of us. We are all in lockdown, which means we are not allowed to venture out. We cannot meet our friends, we cannot meet our family, the children cannot go down to play, the children cannot interact with their friends. And all of that has caused a considerable amount of impact on our children. Now, socialization is a very natural and normal part of childhood. Now, children are basically born egocentric, which means that their world revolves around them. Their entire universe revolves around me, myself, I. And that's the basic nature of children. Now, I'm not saying that this is a negative thing. This is how children are innately born. And that is why the process of socialization becomes important, because it teaches them how to engage with the outside world in a very productive manner, in a very fruitful manner that then promotes success in their life, in their relationships. But unfortunately, because of the lockdown, that has been completely barred for the past 4 months or so. So the children are now have lost all important opportunities to engage in play, to engage in communication with the world outside. And that has taken toll. Socialization is technically of two types. There is a formal socialization, which is more structured and it basically happens through the education system, wherein children go to school, they interact with their peers, they interact with their teachers, they interact with other people in the school premises. And there's also socialization that is more unstructured, that is more informal, which is the socialization that happens when the child is on the playground, or when the child is interacting with friends, when the child is meeting families, interacting with their grandparents. Now, unfortunately, both these forms of socialization have taken a beating due to the pandemic. Um, Neither are the children able to go physically to school, and neither are the children playing with their friends or interacting with their friends. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. So, the steps that we can take as parents is, like I've already mentioned, engage in as much one to one quality time with your child, because now all the socialization has to happen through you. Also, depending on the age of your child, schedule Zoom meetings, Facebook meetings, Skype sessions, video calls wherein your child can interact with their friends, organize for play dates on the screen, that the child does get to interact with like-minded, similar aged friends of theirs. Reach out to family, reach out to grandparents, reach out to extended family through online presence. Make time for the child to engage with all of these mediums, and although it's online, get them to interact with the outside world as much as possible, so that the socialization process does not take as much beating as it has already. Now, fortunately for us, a lot of research in this area of socialization has already been conducted, and luckily the good news is that the children are going to come out of this lockdown in a resilient and adaptive way. And it's once they resume their normal life, their normal social life, things are going to take a few weeks or a few days before they bounce back to being social human beings again. So we do not need to beat ourselves over it and be excessively worried that the child is only interacting with me, the child is only seeing me, because human beings are resilient, children are resilient. So when given the chance, and when things do open up, and when things do become near normal, the children are going to be able to bounce back and go back and interact with their peers and socialize in a way that they have in the past. So we do not need to take a beating about it. But yes, as parents, what we need to do is to be attentive to any changes that we feel in the child's behavior, any signs of anxiety that I have listed in the past. Be sensitive to any demands of the child, any needs of the child that we feel have suddenly risen in the period of lockdown, that have not been there in the past, and attend to that in a loving and caring manner, and provide as much support as we can during these times. I do see a couple of questions that have come in, and I think now would be a nice time to address those. All right, now I see one question coming from Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. The question is, my child is 2 years, 8 months old. She is very hyperactive, and nowadays she is behaving in a strange manner, doing all sorts of jib, getting irritated and hitting everyone. How to solve this behavior of hers? First of all, Rebecca, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for your question. Your child is about 2 years, 8 months, and you've said that suddenly she's become very hyperactive and she's behaving in a strange manner. I can completely understand the turmoil that you must be facing, to see this sudden pattern of behavior in her. So my first thing to you, Rebecca, would be to get down to her level, right? As parents, it's very easy for us to get agitated when the child is agitated. But please understand that you cannot douse a fire, you cannot extinguish a fire with fire. So if you have to extinguish a fire, you have to become the water. So The next time you find yourself in a situation, Rebecca, where your child is doing zid, your child is behaving aggressively, hitting people, you've said, I would want you to calm down. I would want you to respond from an area of calmness. Get down to the child's level, understand what is happening and why the child is behaving like that. You don't need to necessarily give in to every zin, but you need to understand the pattern. When is this behavior occurring? At that very minute, the SOS would be for you to calm down. If something is burning, you need to become the water to address it, to calm down that situation. So in that moment, what is your child demanding? See whether you can give in to that demand a little bit. Try to distract her with something else. Try to break out into a happy moment. Try to do anything at that moment you as a parent would know to elevate that anxiety, to elevate that aggression. That's the first point. The second point is I would want you to work on what are the patterns. When is your child behaving like that? Is he more cranky and irritable and angry in the morning? Are they more angry and irritable during lunchtime? Are they getting enough sleep? Are they getting enough relaxation? Is the aggression and the anxiety saying something to you? What is the child trying to communicate to you, right? The third thing you could probably do is spend quality time with your child. Make the child understand that yes, I have work, I have household chores that I have to attend to, but schedule certain periods in the day where you're giving undivided attention to the child and being with the child, right? In addition, make sure the child is getting enough sleep, getting enough nutrition. Make sure that the screen time, sleep and food, those are the 2 times that I strictly advise parents to not allow the child any screen time, because although screen time has not found to have any counterproductive effect on the child, it has definitely shown to have an influence on the circadian rhythm, on the sleep-wake rhythm, and also on food and nutrition. So please make sure that there is no screen time during 1 hour before sleeping time. There is no screen time during meal times. Make sure that that is happening. And I think if you follow these small tips, maintain a routine to the day, spend quality time with the child, and when the child is in an episode of aggression, please try not to respond aggressively to that. Respond from a place of calm and then see the changes. Yes? I hope that answers your question, Rebecca. The next question is from Manaksha, who says, my issue is the same as that of Rebecca's. My son throws a lot of tantrums, and though he's a very sweet and intelligent child, sometimes he gets stubborn and angry. How do we work this out? So it's pretty much the same question, Manaksha. Once again, my request to all the parents is, see, all our children, like I said, do not have the resources to articulate what they're going through. I'm facing similar concerns with my 8-year-old at home, who is usually somebody who's compliant and who would listen to me on most occasions. But now I'm seeing signs of her acting up. So every instruction or every time I need her to do something, I have to repeat the instruction more than once, almost 4 or 5 times. And it's also very easy for me to get irritated when she is angry and aggressive. But I would sincerely request all the parents to understand that we are adults here, and to not go down to responding aggressively to the child's aggression, to take a moment, to calm down, and to react in a way that is more calm and composed, to get down to the level of the child and react from there. And at the same time, the other steps that I've mentioned about maintaining a routine, maintaining sleep-wake cycle, maintaining enough nutrition, watching the screen time, getting the children to exercise physically, all those steps should also be followed. The next question is from Shiva, who says that he has a 7-year-old daughter, and he finds it difficult to make her express her thoughts. Also, he wants to channelize her energy and develop her interest in extracurricular activities. I find that she gets bored of anything very soon and can't focus for long. All right, Shiva. Sometimes children find it difficult to express themselves in words. And at those times, we need to be attentive as parents, because the child will express in some form or the other, right? And we need to be cued in as parents to see where and how the child is expressing, right? So the child might not come in words and tell you that today, I'm just feeling very bored, or today I'm feeling very frustrated, or today I'm just angry for some reason. Children do not have the resources to articulate like that. I think even adults sometimes do not have the resources. We might be angry at something else, but take out our aggression on something else. There might be days where we are just so irritated or just so anxious or worried, and we might feel it, but we might not be able to put it in words. So obviously a 7-year-old might not be able to express it always. I suggest use other mediums. Because we are in lockdown, I found that cooking is a very effective way of channelizing your energy. Gardening, painting, exercising, it always helps. I think when my daughter and I, if we ever exercise together, or if we're dancing together, or if we're engaging in anything foolish that they like, just jumping around together, it serves as a wonderful medium to not only let off the extra steam or the excess steam, but also to channelize the energy and also to be expressed, and you might find that after about half an hour of jumping around or playing ball with the child or running around with the child or skipping with the child, not only is all the pent up energy released, but you also might find yourself being more calm and composed and connected. So try that for the next time. I'm going to take in another question from Prasad. Prasad says that he has a 2-year-old daughter, and she won't respond when we call her, and she hasn't even started talking yet. Prasad, I wouldn't be too concerned. She's only 2. Yes, there seems a little bit of a delay, but please do not read much into it. Give her some more time. Continue talking to her. Do not give up. Continue exposing her to mediums that allow her to express, like I've mentioned, art, dance, cooking. Read stories to her, allow her to watch interactive content on screen. Give it about 6 months. If you find no change in 6 months, then maybe it would help for you to see a psychologist. You could come to Prafulta if you're based in Bombay, or any other psychologist anywhere. It would also help you to check whether the hearing skills are intact. It would help you to consult with a speech therapist. But then again, I would wait for a little while. She's only 2. Give her a little time. And in 6 months, if you don't see any change whatsoever, it might help to get in some experts. Yeah, I think I missed a question by Sham. Sham says that he has a 3.2-year-old son. He finds it difficult to make her express her thoughts, and she wants to channel. Oh, we've got this question. Sorry, we missed a question. Oh, okay. I think the question from Sham and Shiva are pretty much the same. So we're going to move on to a question by Sonali. Thank you, Sonali, for tuning in. She says her child is 5 years old. She has a delay in achieving her milestone. She does not initiate mix-up with friends from her side. How to develop this? She does self-talk, basically when she is alone. How to stop this? All right, Sonali. First of all, it's a strange time, so I'm not too sure how we can get the child to mix up owing to the lockdown. I'm going to answer this question in 2 parts. I'm going to talk about what you can do during the lockdown, and I can also talk about what you can do once things ease out a little bit. Now, considering that there is a lockdown, what you can do, and she's 5, so I'm sure she has some friends. You could get in touch with these friends on a video call, on a video session, and get her to, she might not talk, but at least get them to be around, right? Get them to be around. You could moderate the call, get her to talk to family, grandparents, maybe other extended family, so that she doesn't completely lose out on this socialization process. Second thing I would advise you to do is, once the lockdown does lift, please be proactive in engaging in play dates, in organizing play sessions, organizing time where the child is with children of the same age, where she does have the opportunity to interact with peers, be it in the garden, be it at home. Organize and make sure you give the child enough opportunities to engage in this kind of interaction, in this kind of socialization. Having said that, don't be too hard on yourself, Sonali, and don't be too hard on the child. Some children are more expressive. Some children like to interact, like to socialize, are very open, and some children are just not like that. So look into yourself. Maybe you also were a little more shy and inward as a child. Maybe you were not. So don't be too hard on yourself in either circumstance. Every child has his or her own unique personality. Provide as a parent enough opportunities for socialization, for interaction, for engagement. But beyond that, trust the process, and the child is going to be absolutely adaptive and fine. Yeah. We have another question from Deepa. Hi, Deepa. Thank you for tuning in. It says, what age group would this be? I mean, is this relevant for under 5? As structure for 5 or 4 years is tough. How do we do that for this age group? I completely understand structures for 4 and 5 years is tough, Deepa. But yet, I suggest that you follow a more or less structure. When I say structure, Deepa, what I'm suggesting is what time is the child sleeping in the night. Let's start with that. If we all know early to bed, early to rise makes me healthy and wise, right? So make sure, and we are talking about a child who's 4-5. A child who's about 4-5 years of age needs minimum 8 to 10 hours of sleep, right? And we all know that the earlier the child sleeps, the better it is. So given the routine of your family, if the child can get into bed by 9:30, 10, it is advisable. Have a whole bedtime routine, right? Make sure the child is brushing the teeth, taking a bath, reading. You read to the child, getting into bed around the same time every day, which will then ensure that he or she wakes up at the same time, after their 9-10 hours of sleep. The child wakes up. Once the child wakes up, make sure he brushes his teeth, takes a bath, engage in, I'm not sure, at 5 years of age, you probably have about 1 hour of online education mandated or given by the government. Make sure that the child engages in that. If there is no academic sessions happening, then you make sure that you sit with the child for an hour at least and do something academically oriented. Have a scheduled lunchtime. Make sure the child gets some downtime or some rest time in the afternoon. This does not necessarily have to be a sleep time, depending on what you're following for your child, but some quiet time where he or she is reading, or he or she is coloring, or engaging in some quiet activities, sticking, painting, any quiet activities. Evening time after their evening snack has to be one that's a little more physical, because for most of us, children would go down to play, or would go to the park to play, or would engage in anything physical in the evening, right? So make sure that physical time happens in the evening. Then have a bed. Again, you can have a bath before sleeping. So when I say a structure or routine, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about something that is written in stone, but I'm talking about something that is more or less indicates to the child that this is what I have to do when I wake up. Because see, what happens is, for children, even as young as 4 and 5, when we did not have the lockdown, right? And we're talking to, and I seem to have lost the question. All right, we're talking to Deepa, right? So Deepa, when we're talking about a child as young as 4 and 5, when we did not have the lockdown, this was a child that had some structure to the day, and this structure could have been imposed by the fact that you had to go to office, or that the child had to go to school, or that the fact that the child could go down and play. There was some structure to the day, which is unfortunately lost because of this lockdown. And therefore, it becomes our responsibility as parents to make sure that we provide this structure in as flexible a way to the child. Because like I mentioned in the talk, this sense of structure gives the child an illusion of control, right? It makes the child know, whatever happens, this is my lunchtime. Whatever happens, this is my playtime. Whatever happens, this is my screen time. So it gives the child that sense of control, which will ultimately work in reducing his or her levels of anxiety. So make sure that we follow more or less a structure. We have another question by Charu. Thank you, Charu. Charu says that her daughter is 3 years 10 months. She never listens to us when we tell her good things at first, but when we discuss something or argue something, she repeats those words with aggression. That is bang on, Charu. Children are extremely perceptive. So they are not going to hear what you say. They are going to copy what you do, right? So you can rave and rant to your child. You can tell your child, do this, do that, don't do that, and they're not going to listen to you at all. And you make one goof up or you say one wrong word and your child has automatically picked that up, and that happens all the while, which is why it's very important, and more so in this period of lockdown where the only exposure your child has is to you, that we behave as good role models, that we model the behavior that we want to see in the child. So yes, we might have our own share of anxieties, frustrations. We have so many things on our mind, be it the household work, be it office work, be it financial worries, be it the health of our near and loved ones. But it is very important that we model the right behavior in front of our children, because our children are watching us all the while and they are picking subconsciously on all these cues. So if at all we find that the anxieties and worries are getting too much for us, it's important that we take a pause as adults, that we engage in self-care, in self-love for ourselves. We take a break. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a moment. It's okay to take an hour off. And at that time, if we have to use the screen as a babysitter, it is absolutely fine. But we must recognize that if we are depleted in our resources, we cannot provide for our children. So take that time off, model the right behavior if it gets too much for you, and please know that the child is watching you all the while. So be a little attentive to that and we'll see the change. We have another question by Aditi. Hi Aditi. Aditi says her son is 2 years old and he is not talking. She says 3 or 4 months back, he spoke 3 or 4 words before the lockdown. But now he's not speaking those words also. From 10 days onwards, we are telling some relationship words he's understanding but not giving a reply. What could be the reason? All right. Like we said, Aditi, 2 years is fairly young yet. And although I would be a little alarmed, I would not be very, very upset and, worried about the whole issue. Given the fact that your child has spoken 3 or 4 words before the lockdown, I would take this as an indication of certain amount of anxiety that the child is going through, a certain amount of worry, frustration, tension that he is experiencing by himself. And also what is happening is, I think our anxieties, your anxiety as a parent, Aditi, might also be rubbing on to the child. So the child might sense and might get cued on to your anxiety as a parent, and that might be making him more anxious. So first, like I mentioned, it's important for you to take a back seat, for you to be a little relaxed. And I do understand that it's alarming and upsetting to, you just want him to speak those 1 or 2 words and that's not happening. And that might be triggering a lot of emotions in you, Aditi, I'm sure. So take a step back. It's absolutely fine. The lockdown is going to lift and things are going to come to near normal. And he is going to get a lot of opportunity to interact with other people. So give him that time and space. At the same time, you will keep your efforts on. So you will continue to talk to him. You will keep showing him relationship words or talking about relationship words. You will keep up all your endeavors. But you will not be very, very alarmed. You will not be very, very aggressive in your approach. You will not be very, very anxious in your approach. because the child will unfortunately pick onto that anxiety, and that will pull him back further into his shell, right? And this is a child who has spoken a few words. So I'm assuming that he was in the process of starting to talk, he was in the process of developing linguistic skills, but this whole scenario has put him back into his shell. And as a parent at this time, all you can do is provide him unconditional support and love. You will keep your efforts up, but you will keep it without any expectations. I know that's easier said than done, but it requires a lot of effort in your part, Aditi. But give your child that space, and I'm sure things will turn around, and soon he will be talking so much that you will want to shut your ears. Yeah, so trust the process. You keep up your part of the job and don't expect anything from him right now. Komal says that her child is hyperactive, but he avoids meeting anyone. He likes to play on his own. How to avoid that and make him have friends? Komal, unfortunately, I don't know the age of your child, but I'm just going to assume he is in the 3 to 5 year old bracket. Again, unfortunately, the lockdown will not allow us to provide opportunities for play dates, provide opportunities for socialization, for interaction. Once the lockdown lifts, please make sure as a parent you provide him ample opportunity to engage with children of his own age, to engage with adults, to engage with family members. Provide as many opportunities as you can. Even in the lockdown, like I've mentioned earlier, allow for video sessions, allow for video meetings with friends, with family, to initiate the process of socialization. But beyond that, we'll just have to wait. The child will come of his own. Some children are usually more social, some children are less social, depends on the personality of the child. There is a lot of individual variation, and we must respect and trust that process, but do our bit in providing as much opportunity to the child for social engagement, and beyond that, leave it up to the personality of the child. Chetra wants to know whether less socialization in around 3.5-year-old children leads to anger issues. Chetra, we unfortunately are at such a time in our life when none of us have ever experienced periods of 4 months of lockdown. So although research is underway, we do not have any conclusive evidence right now. But what I can tell you in all the studying that I have done so far is that we have no conclusive evidence to show that lack of socialization can lead to anger issues. So it's good news for us, and we are hoping, and children have shown a great amount of resilience. Children have shown a great amount of adaptability in a few places with things, in a few parts of the world where things have returned to near normal. We have found that the children have been able to bounce back absolutely like nothing had ever gone wrong. So that is good news for all of us. But like I've said, we need to keep up our endeavor in providing them as much socialization that we can provide given the current scenario, and have faith in the resilience of the human mind, because we have found that where things in countries that things have lifted, there have been no adverse effect of lack of socialization. I hope that answers your question, Chetra, and I hope that puts you at ease as well. We have another question by Anubhuti. She says that screen time has adverse effect on eyes, so that it's not a good idea to divide it into academics and entertainment slots. Please suggest something reasonable. Okay, so screen time has, now this is a little bit debatable, Anubhuti. I've done a couple of sessions on screen time on a couple of portals, and whatever research we have come across so far has indicated that screen time per se does not have adverse effects on eyes. The blue light that is emitted from the screen has shown to influence the circadian rhythm. When I talk about the circadian rhythm, it's the sleep-wake cycle. So as mental health professionals, we strongly advise that the children do not get screen time just before they are going to sleep or just immediately after they wake up, because the blue light that is emitted from the screen has it's been proven that it does affect the sleep-wake cycle. Apart from that, we have not conducted any research that has conclusively led us to believe that screen time is harmful for the kids. Yes, we have to keep certain precautionary measures in mind. We have to ensure that the children are not lying down while watching the screen, that they are maintaining the right posture. We have to ensure that the kids are not getting 3, 4, 5 hours of screen time at a stretch. So we are making sure, and schools academically also do that. They're giving the children required amount of breaks. So after every 45 minutes to 1 hour of screen time, make sure that your child gets up, stretches a little bit, blinks their eyes, rubs their palm and caps their eyes, provides some warmth to the eyes, moves the body a little bit. So once we take care of all these precautionary measures, we have no conclusive evidence to show that screen time will have any adverse effect on us. So parents, my sincere request, go easy on yourselves. Do not beat yourself over it, because like I mentioned earlier, the screen is the only connection that the child has to anything outside your house currently. It's a very, very unfortunate scenario, but academics, socialization, entertainment, play, everything unfortunately is happening through the screen. So do not be hard on yourself, parents. Keep these basic tips in mind. Differentiate academic screen time, differentiate play screen time, differentiate entertainment, differentiate socialization, and be concerned not so much about the quantity of screen time, but the quality of screen time. That is of essence here. Not how many hours the child is getting in front of the screen, but what is the child doing in front of the screen. The quality as opposed to the quantity. Yeah, I hope, Anubhuti, that answers your question. We have another question, and I think for the lack of time, I think this will be my last question for today. We have Ashwini who says, ma'am, is it necessary that my daughter must be demanding? She doesn't demand anything, for her age is 8. Ashwini, congratulations. You have a child that doesn't demand. It's absolutely fine, Ashwini. As a parent, Ashwini, you will know if there is something untoward happening or there's something that is not right, right? A child that doesn't demand is wonderful. But then again, it's a question that I cannot answer without knowing further details. When you say a child doesn't demand, what is she not demanding? Does she demand food? Does she demand water? Does she demand so is she demanding for these basic things? I mean, then, and if she is, and she's not demanding for things that are not wrong, that are wrong for her, then it's good for you. So you need to be in tune with that, and I'm sure you'd know that as a parent. Some children intrinsically are a little more calm, are a little more in balance, and that is a good thing. So make sure that you will know as a parent, is she demanding, if she's demanding for the basic things, right? And she's not throwing tantrums about unnecessary things. In that case, I would just think that you're very lucky. So don't be too concerned. I know that because of media and because of so many resources being available to us, we're constantly questioning ourselves as parents, right? We're constantly questioning, are we doing the right thing? Are we being enough? Are we being good enough parents? Are we being the right role models? Is there a manual? Am I supposed to be doing this some other way? It's endless. It's endless. I'm a parent of 2 children myself. I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old, like I mentioned, and the guilt and the pressure that we have as parents is endless. So what I would really recommend is trust yourself. You know your child in a way that nobody knows your child. Nobody will ever know your child. So trust yourself. Know that you're doing the right thing. Know that your child is your own. Know that you will make mistakes. You are not superhuman. You are not God, and neither is your child. Do not expect perfection from yourself or from your child. Please know that it's a process, it's a beautiful journey, and enjoy it. And when you yourself will enjoy this entire journey of parenting, it'll just become so much more easier for your child. Yes. So I hope, I think with that, I will have to come to an end to this session. It's been wonderful interacting with all of you parents. I'd like to end by saying that these are very, very unique and challenging times for all of us. So parents, do not be hard on yourself. Take it easy. Trust yourself. Trust your children. Do use this opportunity. I don't think we'll ever get a chance, God pleasing. And I think we're having trouble with this video. So I'm just going to end with that. Trust yourself, trust your child, and enjoy the process. Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and take care.